All right, everybody, we are live. Jason Sloan here with Furtado Law Solutions. My co-host, Jose Hernales, he's got a little bit of a cold, so he's not at the office, so he doesn't get everybody else sick. We have,
Hi guys.
and we have our guest of the day, and it's going to be exciting. We were planning on Randy, but obviously he double booked like it happens many times. So we have Connor Rodich, the new COO and head. Is it liaison coach or
lead coach? All good, man. Yeah, lead coach.
okay?
Yeah.
Randy had like 5 of their things on there, and I'm like, okay, well, we'll get it clarified at the show.
All good. All good. Yeah, I appreciate you guys having me, Jason, Jose, Furtado Law. I'm excited. I'm ready to get into it.
All right, Jose, let's get it going.
All right. So Connor, what is your background business?
Yeah. So I guess,
Prisoner.
starting from the beginning of it all, I think I had a unique opportunity of being able to start in the corporate America journey. So being able to see some of the things that are very scalable and operationally focused out of the gates. I was a first generation college graduate, although my family and my upbringing was go to college, get your 4-year degree, go into the corporate world. No trades background, nothing like that. So I have a pretty boring story. Just the normal. Hey, went to school, paid my way, got through, and found myself into a job right out of school where I was cold calling 100+ people a day and trying to line up appointments for outside sales reps and so forth. And from that point, climbing the corporate ladder and found myself into corporate leadership for a company based out of Brooklyn, New York. And then from there, 2018, 2019, I built some interest in potentially joining and becoming a part of the roofing industry as an owner, because I knew I always wanted to own my own business. I was always very entrepreneurial minded. I kind of have my story about going into the woods and creeks as a young kid and selling golf balls on the 11th hole. So I've always been an entrepreneur at heart, but basically, just came into the fold with the roofing industry in late 2018, early 2019, as I had known Chase Johnson, which is a good friend of mine out of the Denver, Colorado market, and kind of piqued my interest a little bit into the industry, and then eventually found a business partner that just kind of fallen in my lap as an opportunity for me to be able to hop in. And so from there, we had a good run for almost a couple years, but then I ended up finding myself at RoofCon 2020 and essentially being recruited to join the team and help bring some of the vision that former partner of mine had sites to create and visions that he wanted to create for the industry. And so my job was to come in and kind of make it all happen and to assemble a team and help the folks that were already there to help create more clarity to their business. And, I always say for their sake and for mine that I would not be in any of the position that I'm in today without the people that have been able to support the mission and the things that we've been able to do at roofing.com. But it inevitably landed me to a place where that partnership went different ways and separated, and then found myself to be getting involved with the Roofing Academy and with Randy Brothers. And I've known Randy since I think late 2019. And so it was one of those things where I knew who Randy was, and I felt like I had a good enough rapport, and he had enough years in the industry to know that, however many years, I think he's had his company for 12 or 13 years now. And he's had, business partners and folks that have been with him for a long period of time. So I felt like this would be a great opportunity to be able to have another strong partnership and hopefully be able to take those next steps to something that's a little bit more of a longer tenure. So, but that's kind of the whole story. And again, taking it back to the corporate side, it's been something that I've brought a lot of non-native industry knowledge to the space and kind of created a different, trying to create a new stigma and establish a new status quo for how things are done at the ground level of how to get things done in a roofing, on the day to day of a roofing business, but then also high level executive level leadership. So, and what that looks like. So that's kind of the short of it, as long as that is.
It's the long short answer.
Yeah. My story's tough because I'm not like hey man, I've been in the roofing industry for 12 years and it's been great. I've had 6 of those last 12 been multi-million-dollar years, and I'm rich. Great. Hey, let me tell you how good I am. Like I don't have that story. I'm just like, I'm the guy that came out of the corporate space, found my way into the industry, and I haven't really been in it all that long, but I think I've made, at this point, I've worked with over 100 businesses, directly between roofing.com and now the Roofing Academy. And I've obviously at some point, to some extent, been pretty. I've been out there and spoke on stage, and probably impacted to an extent of which I'll never know in some indirect way. But I've had a very, I guess, in the short period of time I have been in the role that I've been in, I've definitely reached as many as I want to reach more people, but reached a good bit of people at this point. So.
Well, I mean, I know Randy, and as far as working with him with FLS and everything, like I had my supplement company back in the day, and Kyle, who was one of our other executives who works, they chose to work with him because he was more laid back and everything, and they had a bad experience with another company, and I was gung ho, get this handled, and he wants to get it handled, but he has a different approach, and and Randy's pretty gung ho, but he also lets the other partners in the business have a say, and they didn't really want some wild card stuff going on, and honestly, it was probably the best, because what happened with my business was just everything went sideways as far as we were going after everything for contractors. Yeah. But then some of these guys, and the problem was these sales guys didn't know how to do nothing but sell. And instead of just them paying, the sales guys were mad because we were making more than they were. It was like, well, if you knew how to document a job and deal with the adjuster, we wouldn't even have a job right now, because we actually went out, we did adjuster meetings, everything. So, it was a different type. It was on the fringe of being like a PA, but we didn't have the licensing, and we were working for that contractor, and we were using their name. With FLS, we are using the FLS name, and we're representing the contractor. So it's a different stuff. But Kyle put together a great, team for Randy and them. Yep. Now I'm sure they're not doing too much because we haven't had a lot of hail in Colorado.
Colorado's been a little bit dry the last few years.
But the thing is that Randy and Cody and Bree have, now they were already in the commercial space, but now they're in, okay, we're going to do that more. And they've been pushing that at the conferences. It's like, hey, expand what you're doing, because you don't know if it's going to be like Colorado and all of a sudden dry up. Like Texas probably will never dry up, but we never thought Colorado would either.
No. Yeah. Even in my market and the market that I had my company in Tulsa, it's gone through a dry spell the last couple of years. And, Oklahoma, the Front Range of Colorado, and Texas are like the ones that are, inevitably every year going to get hit. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, definitely. And that's something that we can certainly segue and talk about into this conversation a bit, is some of that transition and how, we've dealt with it, how other, contractors, you spoke about Randy's company, obviously trying to be more, I guess, create a real sales process, within the company where you're not just leaning only on the storm, because as much as I know that's where, we a lot of us make our big bucks. It's also something that when it does dry up, it can certainly affect the company in a big way. You know what I mean? So
well, and I never understood this coming from to work in storm work, but there's these good old boys, and they know their numbers, and they're just like, it's an insurance job, and they're like, here's what it is, So you got a flat roof that you don't have a crew to do, and so and it's a torch down or whatever, right? So you're like, okay, well, I'm just going to defer it to these other guys, and we'll make our money on top. And they're just like, this is how it is. And then it's funny because they're like, all the custom stuff that we're used to as far as like painted drip edge and stuff. They're just putting gunmetal on the house, and they don't give two craps. They do a good job, don't get me wrong, but I was like, it was the reason I'm talking about this is it was one of the claims was on one of my family's properties. So we had a low slope house, and a tree fell on it, and all it did was damage a gutter, but the gutter had a built-in drip edge. So I was able to get the whole roof paid for. So we went, did everything, and got all the stuff. Afterwards, I'm like, so now we have to repaint the drip edge? Like, these guys couldn't even, like, they have metal bending machines, and they can't even say, like, what color do you want and everything. Yeah. But I mean, I think there's like a good in between for that, but they have their business, and it doesn't matter if there's a storm or not. They're doing repairs, and they're building their back end business for when somebody needs to do a full re-roof or the recoat or whatever, and then they're set up for all that. And everybody that's working for them is employees, and so they're actually able to control what the person does instead of as 1099s. Guess what? Here's the job. And if they don't show up, you're calling them freaking out, right? We've all been in there. If anybody has never dealt with that, I will call you a bold-faced liar right now, because or you've never been in a situation where it's a crazy storm like 2017 here, where you have a guy who's never showed up late, and then all of a sudden you call him, he gets a hold of you, and you're just like, oh, they didn't show up, and that their crew went somewhere else because they're making an extra $5 a square or something, right?
Yep.
So, I do see where that all comes in, the employee situation. And those companies that have been around forever, they're not paying as much work comp because they don't have the safety issues and everything. And you can tell them, you're harnessing up, you're doing this, you're doing that, type of thing. And if not, all right, you're out of here. I'm going to the next guy. And we are dealing with a labor shortage all over the country. So that's a difficult situation. But I think as people stop living in their parents' living rooms and everything in basements, people will start wanting to work again too.
That's the hope. Hopefully it gets back to that way for sure.
Yeah.
So Jose, what we got?
Okay, so and where did you grow up?
Oh, I grew up out of Tulsa, Oklahoma, born and raised. Made a move. I graduated from Central Oklahoma out of Edmond. Those of you that may or may not know what that is, where that is, rather.
Yeah, Derek talks about it all the time.
Yeah, Derek and I have known each other. Well, I say that, didn't really know me the way he knows me now, I think, until I got onto this side of things. But yeah, Derek was one of the first guys that I knew in the industry as a vendor partner, because he's right there in Yukon. So, and worked a bunch of, obviously he's always keeping those maps fresh out there. So, but yeah, so I grew up in Tulsa, Oklahoma, moved to Oklahoma City, Edmond, and then moved back after going to school and stuff. I actually had set roots down in Oklahoma City for about 7 years. And then I moved back into Tulsa, and then found myself out. I actually moved myself and my entire family, uprooted everything, all the side businesses, all the roofing company I had at the time that was doing pretty well. Merged that into my former partner's business entity at the time, and I moved my entire family to upstate South Carolina, to Greenville, South Carolina. So that's where I'm at now.
Nice.
Awesome.
So how do you like it compared to Oklahoma?
What'd you say?
How do you like South Carolina compared to Oklahoma?
Oh, yeah. So Oklahoma is it's good for storms and weather and all things that are going to be causing, cat events in the world of roofing or any other, general contracting or whatever in general. But I don't say this because I hate on Oklahoma, because I know I have folks that keep up with me and don't want to never talk bad about Oklahoma, but South Carolina has certainly grown on me, especially where I live up in the foothills of the Blue Ridge Mountains. I mean, right outside my backyard. I can see the mountains in the wintertime when I don't have any tree line behind me because the leaves are gone. I can see the Blue Ridge Mountains from my backyard, and it's the weather is a lot more stable, I would say, because out in Oklahoma, it's either 1,000 miles an hour of wind and or hot as can be, or tornadoes and earthquakes and all the things spinning up. So, but definitely out here a lot more consistent, not windy, very mild weather, mild seasons, stuff like that. So I think I enjoy that a lot. It's grown on me quite a bit. So.
Okay. And what about your hobbies? What do you do when you're not working, Connor?
Oh man. Hobbies wise, I'm really into race cars. I don't know if I already said that. Maybe at one point we were talking about that. I think offline a little bit, maybe. But yeah, I have 1,100 horsepower vehicle that hits the drag strip ever so often as I can make it out. So that's fun. I really enjoy. I'm actually into striking and boxing. I try the jiu-jitsu stuff and all that. Not my jam as much, but I've been doing that for several years and enjoy that. Also, yeah, just a traveler. I like traveling a lot. My family and I, we really enjoy that. So yeah, that's kind of yeah, we live on 5.5 acres. We've got a bunch of we've got livestock and stuff. We've got a big bonfire pit, so we do some fun stuff, out there and have a good time. So those are all hobbies for sure.
So, what is your goal with coming on to Roofing Academy? We talked about it a little bit, but you
Yep.
talked about stability. They've built this team, and it's not. We've seen a lot of other companies out there that are, they've supersized, but they're not. It's just like, I'm gonna have as many vendors as I can, and I'm gonna have as many people in here and it's more about quantity than quality. And it seems everything with the Roofing Academy is more, it's quality, and then and then that's going to bring in the correct people,
Yeah.
what the attributes. Obviously, you have attributes that Randy and Cody and Bree liked.
Yep.
So what is it that you bring to the table that's going to differentiate it, and where do you see everything going in the next few years?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I think, well, for one, just kind of what drove me to do this with Randy from the jump, and I say this in a very humble way. There were I was presented quite a few opportunities within the industry once folks kind of found out I was in some way, in one way, shape, or form, a free agent. Okay, and so I was very destined to kind of go on my own path. And I had actually had someone that I'd stirred up a potential partnership with, and we were working into a direction of building an app and doing some other things. And then that kind of fizzled a little bit just before it really even got started. This was actually the very beginning of this year. And then after I left roofing.com, all of these things were kind of spinning up, but nothing was really sticking. And then at the 11th hour, Randy came around and basically was like, "Hey man, let's just talk, see if synergies, make sense here, and see if working together at some level makes sense." And so, like I said from the beginning, knowing Randy and knowing kind of the core values of who he is, and knowing that he's had his company for a good period of time, he's got good standing partnerships and tenure with people that either, like I said, I've worked with him. Like, I think his least tenured sales employee has been with him for like 6 years or something like that. So I knew that I was getting into a situation where I feel like I could have something a little bit more lengthy of more tenured of a partnership. And so I did that. And through the partnership, I think initially it was like he just wanted to have me involved. He knew my mindset, knew my operational background. And I think a lot of it was just kind of, hey, help me get this thing moving to that next phase that we need TRA to go. And it took a little while to kind of figure out what our roles and responsibilities were going to be, and kind of how we funneled, and, all of that. But I think at the end of the day, obviously his title being CSO, Chief Strategic Officer, mine's COO, Chief Operating Officer, cool titles or whatever. At the end of the day, like he and I both have a very strong skill set of both the visionary side and the making things happen side, the integrator side, if you will. A lot of people familiar with like the EOS terminology. And so the fact that he and I both have strong sets, he's a little bit more about the vision and I am a little bit more about the application and the integration, I would say, but still that we both have a strong skill set in both and we've had to play both. Because until I got here, I know they have Bree, we have, I say they, I'm with the team now, but before I was there, it was, just Bree and Cody and then Randy and then Debbie was helping out with some bookkeeping stuff, but they were kind of missing the piece of someone that could help out and really kind of, juice this thing up and give it legs to scale because Randy was taking on both sides, and so I think the short of, the straight to the point answer here I just had to give that background a little bit is that really it's to bring the non-industry knowledge, then again, non-industry knowledge, doing things a little bit different way into what we do on the day-to-day with our clients, as well as bringing more CFO level leadership, because I've had the unique opportunity of being able to be in so many different type of roles that I've kind of been the jack of all trades that's been able to really get really good at marketing, really good at sales, really good at operations, really good at finance, and kind of look at all the buckets of the business and stuff. And so I think just having someone that can kind of speak to all of it and help create clarity and execution strategies and the ability to be able to really think about business in a different way, especially with our clients seeing that firsthand now. They're getting on calls with myself and with Randy and myself with kind of our new thing that we're doing, or going to folks locally, going to their markets and doing on-sites with them and stuff like that. And in that situation, people are like blown away of the things that they're seeing now because they're getting so much stuff that's not just, and I'm not saying that it's bad to have, the 12, 20, 50 years of roofing experience. There's nothing wrong with that, but just the stuff that's not something they're seeing every day out there in the market and hearing regurgitated over and over and over. You know what I mean? So I think that's the value that is brought with that type of addition and me coming into the partnership with Randy.
Yeah, and I mean, we were, let's see, it was quite a few years ago. There was two conferences there was SVG and IMG. Nobody hears about IMG anymore, but literally it was, IMG was Kevin and them and out of California, and he went to SVG and was like, "Oh, we can do this," and some other guys that in Chicago, and so they basically, it was the exact same thing, and I had free tickets to both. So I went, and it was like the exact same speakers, like everything was literally the same. It was just different cities. One was in New Orleans and one was in Las Vegas. And I had a couple of people that went with me from my business, from my roofing business, and they were just like, "This is the same thing. It's just," they're like, and I go, "Well, I guess it's like, do you like Anthony or do you like Kevin?" Thing is Anthony's still around. But he churns through people, and he's had some people come back and everything, but he is not, I think overall he's a good guy. He's trying, I mean, he's a businessman, ultimately, but he's not, at the end of the day, he's not trying to have businesses that are flourishing. Like if you flourish one year and you're in the gutter the next year, Randy will be like, "Oh, that happened to me this year," and he talks about that, his business stuff, but he hasn't gotten out of the roofing business like a lot of these guys have. He still has that, and he's built it so that way is he involved? Yes, but he doesn't have to be as involved as he was in the past, and that's why he can do these other projects. And I think that speaks a lot to his character and what he's put. And I mean, obviously with COVID and stuff, they can put more time. With Colorado, we were more shut down than some places, not as much as California, thank goodness, but I'm sure they were able to get in and get a lot of work done on both businesses, and work on those when nobody wants you at their house and everything else.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, I think too that that's another thing. Just to add something you brought up with Randy is just being a really authentic individual and someone that's not willing to, or someone that is willing rather to share his flaws or say, hey, you know, this is where we are real legitimately. Like Denver's been in a bad spot the last few years, not seeing the storm work. I built my company around being a storm response business rather than having a really strong retail side of it or integrating solar. And he's making those changes, you know what I mean, to stay up with the times and make sure that he has a competitive, he's obviously as Elite Roofing established such a great market presence and ranks at the top and does all the things the right way. But I think, just having an individual that will be willing to admit he doesn't have it all figured out and that he's done a lot of things that have driven success for him, but they're not necessarily, the end all be all if a storm doesn't hit. So we got to pivot, we got to keep growing, we got to keep moving, you know what I mean, or whatever. So that's something I admire about him a lot for sure. And I know he's not on this call for me to hear that, but I mean, I've told him that time and time again that that's one of the reasons I really was driven to no pun intended. I know you got the driven shirt on, but driven to join up with him because it was really an opportunity that I felt like it made sense on paper and it made sense on the aspects of our personalities and the fact that I'm the same way. I mean, I don't have it all figured out. I tell clients every single time, obviously to an extent, I don't say it on every single call, but typically when someone starts working with me, whether I'm going to them, in person or I'm working with them virtually, is say, look, I'm not the Jesus of roofing. I'm not going to sit here and just tell you, I'm going to prophesy everything for you to tell you this is how this is going to go. But what I am going to give you is a very, very strong, well-educated opinion and strategy attack plan to how to get to where you're wanting to go. But I'm very authentic and vulnerable to say, hey, I'm not a 40-year experience type of guy in this business. And I'm not sure you want me to be. You probably need someone that's going to be fresh and new and up to with some of the latest things and not, just going through some of the archaic methods of being a roofer back in the 80s and, 90s or whatever, you know what I mean? So I try to do things that are a lot more, a lot more cutting edge and a lot more of an outsider type of approach.
Well, I mean, and even if we have guys that we meet with, and as far as to go over our supplement business, and we go over stuff, and I have guys that have been around 30, 40 years, and they're like, I never knew that, type of thing. So you're never too old to learn something. I mean, there's guys that are, roofing gods, I guess you would call them, and they still learn stuff. Like a good
The
person.
godfathers of roofing.
Yeah, exactly. They, the you see a lot of these guys really good PAs and other stuff, and I know a guy he's a good PA, and he's also owns a roofing company. He started in roofing and got in the other, but he has both going, but the thing is he goes to conferences. He goes, and he told me one time, he goes, if I spend $1,000 to go to a conference and I learn one thing, I'm gonna make my money back that year from learning that one thing. He goes, so he goes, I go to about 10 of them a year. He goes, sometimes, but overall, you're gonna learn something new, and you have to be open to it. You can't be like, this is the only way to do it, because guess what? Somebody might have. I'm watching this guy on Instagram do siding with a cordless roofing nail gun, and I go, what the hell? But he's got a special thing and a special way he does it. And I was always taught, like on siding, for vinyl siding, you do not use a gun, because it's not made for that. Is, well, he's got a way to do it. And I mean, he's got a retarded amount, excuse my language, but an insane amount of viewers. And I'm like, I'm not really impressed with people putting on stuff, because I've done it myself. Yeah. And I'm sitting there watching and watching video after video after for him. So there's always a new way to do stuff in a better way.
And that's that example, I know obviously is just very very basic example of how things can evolutionize, but no, that's kind of what I mean by I'm not sure if the stuff that you want to be involved with your coaching or with with the things we're doing in TRA. If you want it to like always be that this is how it's done, this is how it's always done. I mean, it needs to be something that grows and as things evolve, it evolves. And so that's kind of that's the MO, is to be up to speed with the best ways, the best approaches, the most streamlined, optimized, systems that you could have, and especially leveraging tech and things like that, and the SaaS space that we have within our within the roofing space and all the service providers, is trying to keep up with making things as easy as possible, as scalable as possible. You know what I mean? Rather than just sticking to it the old way. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Well, anything to close out? Closing thoughts?
No, I appreciate you guys having me on. Obviously, if I know you got the roofingacademy.com on there, so give us a look, check us out. You can schedule a call directly through there. If you're looking for my how to get a hold of me directly, you can reach out to me via Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. I'm pretty active on. Well, I say I'm active. I'm not an active poster per se, but I'm active in terms of responding and stuff like that through those channels. And I know today we didn't necessarily get into anything super educational, just more so getting into some of the stuff that is about us and TRA, which I obviously really appreciate the spotlight, Jason, Jose. But yeah, hopefully next time we can do some things that'll bring some value to the folks, rather than just me being all about me. This isn't about me. I want to make sure that it's about you guys. So but just I mean, as far as the Fraternal Law Group and the stuff that we're doing here at TRA, we're definitely just here to service the contractor and make sure that we're helping out the best way we can with everything from A to Z. So I appreciate you guys.
Yeah. Well, if anybody needs help with their estimate supplements or just consulting based on some issues with some claims, you can call or text me at 720-702-1938, or you can email me at jason@furtadolaw.solutions. So thanks a lot, and I'm sure we'll probably have you on again. And like I said, I was telling you last night, I plan on having multiple segments with you guys, because you guys bring different dynamics and backgrounds and everything. So
next time I'd love to be able to get into some. I think a lot of the things that I start with is just talking through. I know the guys and gals in TRA, they probably get tired of me beating it over their head, but talking through financial clarity, a lot of stuff where it's just identifying the target, and not just because you did X amount of revenue last year and you want to do X amount of revenue this year, whatever, but you're in the business to make a profit, and you're in the business to create opportunities for others. And so, creating a lot of clarity around that, that's always something that's usually the starting point for everything. So hopefully next time we can hop into some of that stuff. So
yeah, I mean, I know Randy, I mean, that's one of the things we preach too, and Randy does, knowing your numbers. If you don't know that, you don't know where you need to be at.
Yep. It all starts there. That's for sure.
All right.
So, appreciate you guys.